Ron, when's your birthday?
1/10/31.
A little bit of background on you. Was your dad or parents or anybody in the racing business at all?
No,
No?
no. I got into it after I got out of the service in '52. I lived in Erie.
Erie?
I went to school in Erie, got married in Erie, and moved here to Meadville in 1962.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
You remember Pearl Harbor?
Yes, I do.
What do you remember about that, Ron?
I was living with foster parents in Kearsarge, and Lois Smith was her name. I remember her running up the steps and saying, "Oh my God, we're going to war now. Charlie's going to have to go." Kearsarge, and I went to grade school there, and I went to Wattsburg, and I left Wattsburg and I went to Erie and got kicked out of Erie schools, and I says bye-bye. I joined the Navy in 48.
Okay.
From 48 to 52.
So where did you do your basic training?
Great Lakes,
Okay.
Great Lakes Naval. They tried to send me to school, but I joined the Navy to see the world, so I flunked out of school after about 8 weeks, and I was on a destroyer and for the next 3.5 years, and seen the world in the Mediterranean mostly.
What was the ship?
USS Glennon DD-840. We went to all the countries that the ship went to. It's Spain, Europe, Iceland, all over.
Inevitably, as you went into the various ports of calls and had liberty, are there some funny stories, humorous things that you could share?
Not on camera. Italy, we went to see the Pope, which it never happened.
Really?
I was a bad boy. Yeah, I enlisted for 3, and they gave me an extra year because of the Korean War.
Okay. You didn't go over there?
No.
And on the destroyer, what was your principal job?
In the fire room. What happened in '52, I got turned loose from the service, and I enjoyed life for a couple of years, and I met my wife, Thelma, and we got married in '54. '54, I was in Erie.
In Erie?
Still staying in Kearsarge with a couple buddies. It was stock cars, and I wanted one, and I got one.
Really?
And we raced at Pittsburgh, when Pittsburgh Avenue was a racetrack. 26th and Pittsburgh Avenue, there was a racetrack there, and the stadium, and Cool Road, and just Tri-City, and just a handful of other ones that opened and closed within the summer. But that's where I got involved in racing. I attempted to drive. And enjoyed it. It was fun. That's when, if you made $15, it was enough to fix a car and go back racing again the following week.
Yeah.
And that went on for numerous years. And I remember we had a flathead Ford coupe, and we used to tow it down to Tri-City every Sunday afternoon and make our $15 and come back and have a blast.
So that's your first exposure to Tri-City?
Yep. I've always been, I think I was born with a Ford in my mouth. I got married in '54, and Pam was born in '56. And I had more important things to do than racing, but I still liked it.
Yeah.
And go to the races on Sunday afternoon, or whenever Sharon ran in the afternoon, we'd go there and spend the afternoon. I can remember sitting there, and after the first 2 or 3 laps, you know who the winner would be, and so I can read my book until the next race. And when I stop and think about it, it was, I enjoyed it, but it was rather boring. The name that stands out most in my mind is Lou Gentile, or Emick.
Yeah.
I'm drawing a blank on Vicky's dad had this 6-cylinder Ford, and he was really kicking ass against the big Chevy V8s, and I used to go just to watch him. He kept me entertained for numerous years. But I never had any really favorite drivers. I just enjoyed watching the sport. And that went on for numerous years until I went in business in '67, and I tried to hire Mike Eckert as, I went to business, let's say in '67, I started with myself. And as things picked up and I needed a mechanic, I tried to hire Mike Eckert from the Ford garage, and he didn't want to go and didn't want to go, and then finally I says, I'll let you build a coupe if you come to work for me. And the end result was he came to work for me, and I don't remember, but he worked for me until he retired, and he's 4 years younger than me. So.
And so you were in Meadville at the time. What kind
Yeah.
of business were you in?
The garbage business.
Garbage business?
Yeah.
And why that? What triggered you to get into garbage?
Well, when I got out of the service, the job available was a garbage man, and I took it, and I loved it. I really did. And I left it with a sore back for a couple of years, and then I got back into it again, and eventually I went to work for this company for 15 years, and I said, if I can do it for them, I can do it for myself. So I bought a truck and
Really?
started hustling.
Right here in the Meadville area? Or this-
Yep, yeah. We were the first ones with containers in Meadville, first one with roll-offs in Meadville. And when there wasn't enough work here, we went up into the Erie market and expanded. And eventually, we got some communities nearby, Oil City and Titusville and Franklin, Milford Township. We did quite well.
Did you have what kind of fleet did you have? At some point, you must have had a massive number of trucks.
I had around, on a daily basis, 20, up to 25 trucks running at one time.
Wow. And did they have municipal landfills, or did you have your own?
We had our own.
Wow.
Up until the new Solid Waste Act went into effect, we were allowed to dump wherever there was a municipal dump or a private one or whatever. And I bought this one landfill down in Clarion and did the engineering. We did the engineering and all the things that the state wanted done for, which is today's permit. And we got permit, and it got more than I could handle, so I had to eventually sell out.
Who did you sell to?
I sold to a company out of Philadelphia, part of my business, another part to a friend of mine in Erie. That's the first thing I did when I sold out is get a race car. I wanted, the Chevys were kicking ass, and I wanted a Ford to kick ass. And
You're loyal.
huh?
You were loyal.
Yeah, and I had a local builder build an engine. Didn't do too well. I went to Ohio and had one built. And that did even worse, and I sent to California to get one built, and that did even worse. And Randy, in the meantime, I'd changed drivers, and I'd given up. on the late model. I got taken so many times by different vendors that I said, this is what racing is like today. I don't want no parts of it. Remember, we raced at Sharon, we raced at Mercer, but there was nothing very steady there. It was, you know, this driver and that driver, and we had Jim, I can't think of his last name, from around the Harrisburg area. He came up on weekends and drove the car. But anyways, to make a long story short, it wasn't my cup of tea.
Right. But these were late model cars.
Yeah, these were full-blown late models.
Right.
And I'd buy a motor. The one in California, the first one I think lasted about 300 laps, and then the next one, he fixed it. It lasted about the same. And then I sent it back to California for a third time, and he says, I'm going to fix it. It's your engine. You keep it.
Yeah.
And it didn't last, but I had very, very bad luck with the motors, but I wasn't disgusted yet. But anyways, I made up my mind I'm done. I sold the 2 Hoover cars I had to somebody, and I don't know how long I was, until I got a package in the mail from the 28 team, Randy Anderson, and he's sending me all this information. So I really didn't read it all. I don't even know if I opened the damn thing. But I threw it on the desk, and a couple of weeks later I got a call from Randy and wanting to set up a meeting. And so his crew and me, we met up in Sugar Grove, I believe it was. And sit down and talked, and I said, well, I'll give it one last shot. So 15 years later, we were still talking.
Do you recall what was it that Randy and Dick actually, how they pitched it?
I think there was, well, we just had conversation, and in my mind, I says, let's do it.
Yeah.
And they talked me into it.
What was the deal? Do you remember?
I think we started out agreeing to, I don't know, it was 1 or 2. 1 car initially, and then they said you got to have 2, and so we got 2, and had 1 motor, and then we got to have 2, and then we got to have 3, and I went along with it, and it was a successful venture.
Was the distance an issue?
No, I tried to talk them into having a car here, but their argument made sense, so we left it in Jamestown. It was much easier for me to travel singly than to have a whole team working on a car every night and having to drive 60 miles, I guess, or something like that.
Did you know anything about these guys?
I didn't know no, I didn't know nothing about them. They drove a supposed Chevy or Ford with a Chevy motor in it. That's all I knew, which I didn't appreciate.
Because you're a Ford guy.
Yep.
Okay. And was that part of the bargain, is no matter what, they're going to drive a Ford?
That's it in a nutshell.
At the time, did the Ford have a lot of success as opposed to the Chevy and others?
None. There were a couple drivers that were using them on hit and miss deal, but I'd say 98% of the late model drivers were Chevys. So
you're somewhat of a pioneer at this point.
Well, I don't know if I was or not, but I tried.
Well, certainly running against the grain.
Yeah.
Go up and check on them on weekdays to see how they were doing?
No, I never realized how naive I was. To this day, I look back and I'm like quite surprised at how dumb I was about racing. I enjoyed watching it, but I never got into the nitty-gritty of it. think Randy and Dick and them sort of opened my eyes to what the real racing world was all about. Yeah, I think we went to Hagerstown. I'm not sure, but I think that was one of our first races.
Yeah.
And
How'd you guys do?
we won.
Wow.
But,
What'd that make you feel like?
it was really exciting. And I think it was for the team too. Our first venture together. Yeah.
March of '93, Ron.
Yeah.
Never forget it.
Well, the race I'll never forget is the one in Erie. Erie traditionally is a one-lane track. You get down low and you win the race. And that particular night, for some reason, Dick decided to go high, and I think it was a 25-lap race, and he was on high side throwing dirt and rocks and mud for 25 laps, never hit the fence or nothing, and just sucked them all up down on the bottom. I'll never forget that. To me, that's the most exciting race of all of them we had, and that was one of the early races. The only reason I had a car is I wanted a Ford to win. Early disappointments. One was down in Virginia someplace. The old dirt track that down the hole. Randy, what was it?
West Virginia Motor Speedway?
No, the
Pennsboro?
Pennsboro, where we blew a motor up down there. Yeah. And at the time we sat down and talked about it, and Randy or Dick or somebody says, why don't you go to Melkett in Ohio and let him build your engines? Because they were getting disappointed too. Every time they turn around, they blow a motor up. And they had, I don't recall just exactly, I think we took a motor down there to get it repaired. And I think I bought a motor down there that belonged to, I don't know, he had it up on the shelf. It was for sale, Ford motor. And I got started with Melkett then, and then we had a very long-lasting relationship, and I don't believe that because of workmanship we ever lost a motor. We lost maybe one or two in 15 years.
Oh.
But we took them out, had them serviced when they were supposed to be serviced, and didn't nurse the laps at all, and did what we were supposed to do, and consequently we had good results from his motor. And that's the only motor builder that I had after that. Dick was always in front or near the front, but after 2 or 3 races, we'd lose the engine. But he was successful right from the start. Right from the start, he was a good racer. When he came aboard, he was a well-known racer.
Yeah. And Dick's role was principally the driver. He was not the mechanic. He was.
That's it. He just drove the car, and I don't know who. I think Randy was head of the team or the spokesman for the team or whatever. And we had a tire changer, and we had a chassis man, John and Jim Seeley.
Did you have any other teams, or was that it?
That was it. They took the car to the track and provided the driver and the maintenance, and I was in the stands watching it, my wife and I.
I think it's safe to say your involvement took Dick's to a whole different success level, and which ultimately set the stage for him being the all-time winner at State Line Speedway. I mean, I think it's safe to say you're the guy that put him way up there to get to that point.
I suppose I could be looking at it that way.
Well, we do.
I don't think they were envious as much as they were enjoying the racers commingled among themselves, all of them, you know, and they appreciated someone doing good.
We'll go into the pits early on, just make sure the car's there, everybody's working on it. Were you kind of?
I never did that. We went to, when we go to State Line or any other racetrack, we'd head for the bleachers, and Melody would probably end up in the pits, and my family would end up in the stands, and hopefully they'd win the race. If they did, I'd go down winner's circle with them, and that was about it.
You're a driver's dream.
Well, with success, you don't have to worry about it. It might have been a different story if we were 0 and 25 or something like that. My wife really enjoyed it, so I wasn't, as long as we could afford to do it, and as long as she wanted to, we was going to have a car.
Just out of curiosity, was this a handshake agreement, or was there actually
handshake? Year to year. Melody pretty much took care of the expenses.
Was that difficult for you to finally, in the family, to say?
No, not really.
Yeah.
Time has come, and that was it.
Yeah.
We put it all in a pile at the garage in Jamestown, put an ad in the racing paper, racing equipment for sale, and I think it sold within a week at a very reasonable price.
The next racing season, did you follow Dick? Were you interested in what's going on?
No, I quit.
Also had an interest in a racetrack. How did you get interested in that? Raceway 7, right?
Yeah. Raceway 7. 2 years of frustration went into it. If I'd have went know now what I know then, I'd have never got into it. Frustration at some of the local tracks, the condition and so on, the restrooms and surfaces. Said, I went to Franny from State Line. I said, Franny, why don't you fix your track so you can race on it? He says, if you don't like it, get your own track. So I did. Raceway 7. And it was pretty sad too. And I don't even know how long I had it.
Who did you buy it from?
Brown, Jim Brown.
Cliff.
Cliff Brown.
Yeah.
Cliff Brown. And we made a cash deal, and I went to work.
Do you remember how much you paid for it?
Yeah, $300,000.
$300,000, and for the camera, Conneaut, Ohio, relative to Conneaut Lake, Pennsylvania, Meadville. How far is that from here?
From Conneaut, from here?
From here, yeah, just from here. From
30 minutes.
30 minutes, okay.
35 minutes.
And what did you do to it? What would you?
Well, there was no end to it. It was, to start with, we had to build a tower. And we built a new tower, and new restrooms, blacktop the surface. Never could get rid of the dust on the track. And probably I should have put new clay down, but I thought with the right preparations we could eliminate most of the dust. Sometimes we did and sometimes we didn't. But anyways, I think I had it for 10 years.
Yes. 97.
And I had to get rid of it in 08. And I tried to make it the way racetrack should be, friendly to the friendly for general admission and friendly for the racers, and at a decent price. And I always felt that if you build a good track, the people will come and the racers will come, and they did, but not what I expected. And I will say I was quite disappointed in the end results. Anyways, after a while, after putting about $700,000 in the place, I ended up selling it for $300,000 and glad to get out. We had big races and weekly races. Some of our weekly races were as good as some of the specials at other tracks. And I think I paid too big a price. There's a lot of reasons. There's reasons why we got lots of cars. We had a good purse. We had good racing. And there's reasons why we had lots of fans. And as they started dwindling off, I couldn't maintain a exact count on what I needed. I needed 1,500 people in the stands every Friday to make ends meet, and that very seldom happened. In fact, it's only had a 1,500 probably once, maybe twice in the 10 years that I had it. Even having the big Tampa races and the Stars races and anything that was available we'd bring in, we never got over that 1,500. And after donating for years, I decided enough was enough. Either going to sell it or close it. I ended up selling it for what I paid for. Much more happier with the car than I was with the racetrack. Although I do think that by improving the racetrack, it helped boot some of the other tracks in the ass and bring them up to par a little bit at my expense.
Well, on behalf of the racing community, thank you. Did you ever go up and see Dick race after you?
No.
Well, Ron, you were recently inducted into Racing Hall of Fame. Why don't you tell the camera about that?
I didn't go to the awards banquet. I wish I could have, but Melody went and brought back my plaque and a very nice letter, and I appreciated it. There are so many that I can't, it was great, the whole experience, and I really can't sit here and say that there's one that is much better than the other. My highlight of my most interesting race and the people involved in racing, they're all great. It's a big community, and they all look out for one another regardless of the circumstances. Once in a while a fight will develop, but everything's patched up usually by the end of the night, and it's just a good community. I'm very happy to be a part of it.
Were you interested in the racing, right?
No. Never, was not around it. And all I can remember is sitting in the stands at Wattsburg, and Dad was doing the figure eight, and he got kneeled and landed in the back of the car, and that was it. He had 3 kids screaming while my mom was trying to handle us 3 girls.
So that's your memory of your dad driving?
Yep. When Dad joined up with Dick and the team, I really wasn't involved other than the bookwork and stuff like that. As things went on, did get more involved and started going with him. He went more with my younger sister, Stacy. When the guys traveled during the fall to Hagerstown, Challenger, West Virginia and all that, I would go with Mom and Dad, and that was the highlight of the whole season for me, because I got to spend time with them. When they would go to Hagerstown, we would pick up their other daughter, Stacy, and their kids, and we would go down and spend the weekend with them. The highlight of my fall races is Challenger. That was one of the last races my mom was able to go to.
Were they a team? Was it really your mom and dad as a team?
They worked as a team for the track, with the track. As far as the car goes, Mom and Dad really didn't say a whole lot. They were involved in it, but it was more so the track. And if I don't think Dad would have been so successful without my mother being 100% behind him.
This is fantastic. Thank you for letting us sneak in and interrupt your Saturday here in Meadville, Pennsylvania.